Welcome to Tech Recipes. In previous video, we learned how to create a reactive REST endpoint using Spring WebFlux. If you haven't seen that video, there is a link in description. You can follow that first if you want to continue with this video. I have also shared a GitHub link in the description which you can use to download the source code from that video. In this video, we are actually going to write a unit test for the code which we wrote for the customer controller. So let's get started. We are again going to follow a step-by-step approach. So in step 1, we are going to create a class for our test cases, and we are going to annotate this class with a WebFlux test annotation. So Spring provides us with this annotation which makes it very easy to write test for a WebFlux application. Once you annotate the class with this annotation, it will also create, or it will also automatically configure a object of a WebTestClient, and we are going to inject this into our class. We need to also use a Mockito so that we can mock our database repository. Once these two steps are done, we can write our individual test cases. So in a step 3, we will write a get customer endpoint test cases, and in step 4, we will write a test cases for a post customers endpoint. Now we are looking at the code which we wrote in earlier video. So this code basically consists of a request mappings for customer endpoint, and we have created all the CRUD operations here. In this video, we are going to write a unit test to test individual endpoint. We are going to write test for get and post mapping. So let's get started. The first step that we are going to do is we will create a new class inside a test folder. I am calling it a customer controller test class. As we discussed earlier, our first step is put an annotation on this, which is WebFlux test. Now WebFlux test annotation basically allows auto configuration of WebFlux related beans, and it disable auto configuration for other beans. Also, it creates and auto configures the WebTestClient that we are going to use to write our test. So our next step is to Autwire this WebTestClient so that we can use it to write our test cases. In addition to that, we need to mock our repository, and the reason for that is in test environment we don't have any database up, so we basically going to mock the responses for the database while writing our test cases. Now let's start writing a test case for get customer endpoint. I will call this method as void test get customer. Now since we are doing a mocking of a customer repository, and in the get customers call, since we are calling this find all method, we need to basically specify what will be the output of that customer repository, and we need to tell Mockito what should it return when the find all method gets called. So for that, let's first create our output. Our output is going to the flux of customer, and I'm going to use the static method of flux, which is just, and will create some customer objects. Now we need to use Mockito.when method, and since get customer endpoint uses find all method, we need to tell what should be returned when this method is called. Now we are going to use this WebTestClient to basically test the endpoint. We are going to use the get call. Our URI will be /customer. We will accept media type as application JSON. and then we will call exchange. This will call the actual endpoint for testing. After that, we can test what output we are getting. So first we will test for status, and we will expect that the status is okay, because we will expect a successful response from this endpoint. Then we are going to expect a body, and we are expecting that it will be a JSON, and JSON consisting of these two objects. So we are going to use a JSON path to test that output. So we expect that at root there will be a array. Then we will expect that at the first element of that array will have ID as 1. ID as 1. So we are going to check with is equal to, and then that first element of array should also have name is equal to 2. Now you can also write we can also write a similar test for the next element, but I'm not going to do that. You can do it yourself. So this completes our this test. Let's try to run it and see if we face any issue with this. The test case is running, and you can see that the test is passed. Now let's write the test case for our next endpoint, which is a post endpoint. Direct test annotation void test post customer. Now in case of post, we are basically going to pass a customer object to our post endpoint, and we are going to expect a mono response, which is so let's create one mono of a customer. I'm going to use mono dot just pass a C customer to it. And for Mockito, we need to tell Mockito what to do when customer repository dot save method is called with this customer C. We are going to return a mono C. Now let's use WebTestClient, call this post endpoint. URI going to be /customer. Content type will be application JSON. Now for body, we need to pass a mono here, and we need to specify customer.class. We'll call the exchange on it, and we'll see what is our expected status. Expect status dot is okay. Now then we will expect what is a body. So we will expect the customer class which is created will be returned to us. So let's run this test as well. Okay, so this test is also passed. So till now what we did is we created a reactive REST endpoint using the Spring Web Flux, and we also wrote some test to basically test this endpoint. We still need to secure these endpoints, and we are going to do it in our upcoming session. So I will see you in next video.